I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about Frankenstein. Uh, we're going to be writing an essay about this. This is going to be our long read over the course of the semester. I think the best thing to do is read a chapter and then take some notes on it. I've read this and I still will read the chapter and then take notes, write some observations, look for things that I might want to look more into, look for research terms. Just consider actively reading it and trying to figure out what this novel's about. There's a lot that we will go over. There's a lot that we're not going to go over. So there's certainly a lot I think you need to kind of edify your own knowledge base in regards to. I know from my own personal example, sitting in the class, having an instructor tell me all of the history of something, maybe I write some of it down, never going to go back and review it. The only time I ever really learned anything about any of the novels is when I actually do the research myself. When I think, well, what does it mean to be gothic? Is that romantic? Does that mean I have to wear all black, listen to My Chemical Romance? I don't know what that means. Um, in the literary term, Gothic has very specific parameters. It has specific meanings. And so look into that, find out what it's about. It is a little bit more than just the Gothic castles, the feeling of dread. It is also about science. It's also about romanticism. There's different aspects of it that were kind of capturing the zeitgeist at the time, which was kind of this fear of the march of science as we move forward. And so you will see some aspects of this. The novel written in 1816 in the summer, um, during a volcano eruption that had totally blackened out the sky. At that point in time, they called it, I think it was the year without a summer. And specifically, just really odd, weird, creepy weather. So, these things of science, these things of nature, education were all very paramount. They were forefront in everybody's mind. We're starting to get to a point within human society at this time where people have an opportunity to to have leisure. The novel is starting to take off. People have time to read novels. If you think about having to sustain yourself previously in history, people didn't have a lot of time to sit around and read books unless you were extremely wealthy or well off, um, for the most part. So now we're getting to a point where people do have time to get familiar with poetry, read the Bible, really get into bettering themselves in form of education. And in education, people were very, Renaissance type people where they're thinking about like law, medicine, um, scriptures, getting this well rounded education and really trying to understand everything. We have more access to education at this point, more access to information that people can start to educate themselves. And this is really the nexus of this novel is what happens when people have an opportunity to educate themselves, to get interested in something and pursue it. And without any guidance and naked ambition, be able to go drastically off in the wrong direction. We're going to see that in several different places, whether that's Walton, when he says, Walton's the guy who wrote the letters at the very beginning. And he said, he had a neglected education, but he did have an opportunity to read a lot of these seafaring books. And he's probably looking at Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Coleridge. If you have time, definitely take a look at that. There are some parallels and some interesting facets that apply to this novel. He inherited a lot of wealth, Walton, not Coleridge. And the first thing his father said is, this knucklehead cannot take off and get on a boat and go look at the ocean. That's the one thing I want to make sure it doesn't happen. The father dies, he gets the money. What's the first thing he does? He goes out and gets a boat. So he's going to go try to find a northern channel, go over the top of the globe, find a shortcut connecting the worlds. He's got naked ambition, not a lot of smarts. He said he had a neglected education, but he does have a lot of seafaring novel under his belt, and so he's ready to go. We'll see the same type of thing when we get into Victor Frankenstein's character when he arrives to school, when he has his education. And, again, he's pretty much had access to information totally unchecked. And we'll see how his father reacted to it and how the professors at the university reacted to it. This is certainly a theme that we have to look at. It's going to be throughout. as we're going through this, I want you to kind of think about applications of this novel to our contemporary scene. How does it apply? Now, at this point in time, Shelley is writing this and she's saying, oh, this is the new Prometheus. What the hell is a Prometheus? Well, that would be worth investigating as well. But that obviously, Prometheus, if you're familiar with it, was a warning. It was advocating or kind of telling us, hey, beware. This is what happens when you have unchecked ambition and access to knowledge. You're going to get yourself in trouble. So if this is over 200 years old and it was a, hey, beware of this situation, what would Shelley say today, looking at our current situation, where the amount of information that we have access to is phenomenal? We have the internet, we have AI, we have unbridled opportunity to go pursue any crazy random thing that you want to learn more about and, access to the internet. So I think that it is more than applicable today. It's kind of interesting. Um, when we're looking at this novel, you're going to be asked to just kind of consider it as a reader response. What are you getting out of it? How are you responding to it? Now, that doesn't give you license to be like, well, I didn't really understand it. So here's my response. I didn't really understand it. Got to understand it. You're going to have to do whatever research is necessary for you to get a better understanding of this novel. It is beautifully written, it is fantastic. Um, so you do have to engage with the material. If you wanted to apply some type of critical theory to it, you can do research on it, on critical theory, if you're not familiar with it. What that looks like is, say you want to do a feminist reading of it. You do basic research on feminist critical theory, and then you would utilize that research to kind of apply that lens to the novel and kind of look at how, the dynamics of power are played out by gender and how, the context of the time, perhaps the context of Shelley's history, perhaps the just the overall presentation of gender through the novel, and kind of gauge how that's looked at, viewed, or analyze it through that critical lens. Some people may want to look at, well, I'm going to say this, through a Marxist lens, where you get some Marxist critical theory and then you apply different aspects of economic theory to the specific novel or the writer. And, I used to do Gatsby. Gatsby obviously is much more prime to a Marxist evaluation of it. It's not to say that you couldn't do it with Frankenstein. It's probably a little more challenging, but still the aspect of having access to education and leisure time necessary to go study up and how to create a monster would probably require some access to fundage. So, all right. But you have to have some idea of what you're engaging with the novel as far as your theory. I was very, when I first got into reading, when I first got into lit studies, I was very quick to just apply my own theories to it. The beginning of Frankenstein, we have four letters. Now I would look and go, oh my gosh, I bet that's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those were all letters. And I bet that oh, those are the gospel. Those are the four chapters. This is the gospel of Frankenstein. I'm going to apply a Christian reading to this. And if you had like a Frankenstein or a Shelley, expert on it, they would put their arm around me and go, Ron, that's ridiculous, right? You don't want to be ridiculous. You want to have some actual bearing to what Shelley meant when she wrote this. You want to have some um, context to it that kind of aligns with critical analysis of this. And it's not to say that you can't come up with your own analysis, but it still has to be cogent with historical facts. Um, I don't think that Shelley was talking about AI because that wasn't there, but it's still the idea of access to knowledge, access to technology, and the dangers that kind of go with that. Um, Theme of rescue is something that we will see quite a bit. In the very fourth novel, no, the fourth letter, no, the third letter, one of the letters, we have the hiring of the master of the ship. And Walton hires this person. The master of the ship is basically running the ship. If there's any type of problem and you have a court martial, the master is going to take care of that. And Walton likes the master that he hired because he's very thoughtful. He's very soft, right? He's very considerate, right? He's very nice. There's not overly harsh in his command. And so he really likes that idea of how he's going to run things. And so that's kind of an important detail. If you think about um, when he was in love with his fiance and he found out that she was in love with somebody else, and he ends up giving a portion of his fortune to this other person and allowing his fiance to go marry this other poor person, kind of rescuing and setting them up, saving them from a future that they don't want. That is significant, and we see like this implied duty to our fellow man and how we kind of interact with them. And we'll see this throughout. You'll see this theme of rescue. Once we get into Victor Frankenstein's story, pay attention to specifically women that are rescued and what happens to them. Are they even really rescued? Is that the way you would want to be rescued? Anyway, this is a fantastic novel. I hope that you engage with it. I hope that you do some correlative reading to kind of get more information about it, some research, and that when it comes time to write this essay, we can, or even have discussions about this essay, that we can really find some interest in common ground to really enjoy it. That is the big thing about literature. It's meant to be enjoyed. And so, me picking Frankenstein was really trying to find something that I saw something we could tie to the contemporary and enjoy while reading because it is an absolutely beautiful novel. All right. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me or stop by the office hour. Thanks.